My older, bad luck daughter saved up money to buy shoes, so I demanded she give it to my younger daughter for her birthday. I'm Marcus, 43 years old, and I think I just destroyed my family over a pair of sneakers and $300. Looking back now, I can see exactly where everything went wrong, but at the time, I genuinely thought I was doing the right thing. My wife Keisha is 41, and we have two daughters, Brianna, who just turned 17, and Amara, who's 13. We live in Atlanta, in a neighborhood that's gotten expensive over the years, the kind of place where we bought in when it was affordable and now we're just barely hanging on. Between my job at the logistics company and Keisha's work as a dental hygienist, we make it work, but there's never much left over at the end of the month. Hello friends, before I continue the story, please support the channel by becoming a subscriber and giving the video a like. Also, let us know in the comments where you're watching right now. Brianna has always been what my mother calls a complicated child. She's quiet, keeps to herself, gets good grades but doesn't talk much about school or friends or anything really. When she was younger, she had some health issues, nothing life-threatening but enough to rack up medical bills that we're still paying off. I'll be honest, and I know how this sounds, but after Brianna was born, everything got harder. I lost my job at the shipping company 3 months after she came home. Keisha had complications from the delivery that meant more hospital stays. We lost our first apartment because I couldn't make rent. It felt like every time we got our footing, something else knocked us down. Then Amara came along when Brianna was 4, and I swear the energy in our whole house changed. I got promoted within 6 months of Amara's birth. Keisha's health improved. We were able to move into a better place. Amara has always been sunny, easy, the kind of kid who makes friends everywhere and lights up a room. I know it's not fair to compare them, but Brianna has always been so much work emotionally, always in her head, always needing space, always seeming vaguely disappointed in us. Amara just makes everything easier. Here's where everything started going sideways. For Brianna's 17th birthday back in August, she asked for one thing: a new laptop for college applications and her graphic design work. It was a reasonable ask, about $700 for a decent model. We scraped together the money, even borrowed $200 from my brother, and got her the laptop she wanted. She said thank you, took it to her room, and that was basically it. No big celebration, no excitement, just Brianna being Brianna. What we didn't advertise much was that Amara had helped contribute to that laptop. She'd been doing yard work for some neighbors that summer and had saved up about $80. When she found out we were short on cash for Brianna's gift, she volunteered the money without us even asking. She said she wanted Brianna to have something nice for her birthday and college prep. Keisha and I were so touched by that gesture. We told Amara how proud we were of her generosity and how that's what family does for each other. Now Amara's 14th birthday is coming up in 2 weeks, and she's been asking for a new phone. Her current one is an iPhone 8 that used to be Keisha's, and it barely holds a charge anymore. She wants an iPhone 13, nothing crazy expensive, and she's been looking at models that run about $350 refurbished. At first, Keisha and I said we'd see what we could do. But then when I sat down with the budget, I realized there was just no way. We're still paying off the laptop, still behind on some credit cards, and Christmas is coming up right after her birthday. I felt terrible telling Amara we couldn't afford the phone, especially after we'd just gotten Brianna an expensive laptop. Amara took it well on the surface, said she understood, but I could see the disappointment in her eyes. That's when Keisha had an idea. She remembered that Brianna had been saving up money from her part-time job at the smoothie place. Brianna had been talking for months about buying these limited edition Air Jordans, some collaboration pair that was going for about $300. Keisha said, "Why don't we ask Brianna to contribute to Amara's phone, just like Amara contributed to her laptop?" The more we talked about it, the more sense it made to both of us. Amara had given $80 of her own money to help Brianna get her birthday gift. Brianna had way more than that saved up, and she was buying shoes, luxury shoes, while her little sister couldn't even have a functioning phone. We weren't asking Brianna to give up all her money, just $150. She'd still have enough left for some nice shoes, just maybe not the exact ones she wanted. It seemed like basic fairness, like teaching our daughters about family sacrifice and looking out for each other. I sat Brianna down one evening while she was doing homework in her room. I explained the situation calmly, told her about Amara's birthday coming up and how we were struggling financially. I reminded her that Amara had contributed to her laptop without being asked. Then I said, "We're asking you to help out with Amara's phone, maybe $150, and you'll still have money left for shoes." She just stared at me with this blank expression for what felt like a full minute. Then she said, very quietly, "No, that's my money from my job." I was stunned by how quickly and coldly she refused. I tried to explain again about Amara's contribution, about fairness, about family helping family. Brianna cut me off and said, "Amara chose to give that money. Nobody asked her to, and nobody asked me if I wanted her to." That response felt so selfish and calculated, like she'd already thought through all the ways to justify keeping her money. I told her to think about it overnight, that we'd talk again tomorrow. She just turned back to her homework without saying another word, like I wasn't even in the room anymore. 2 days went by with no change in Brianna's position. Keisha tried talking to her, appealing to her as woman to woman, sister to sister. Brianna told her the same thing she told me. "It's my money, I earned it, and I'm not giving it away just because you two can't budget properly." When Keisha told me what Brianna had said, I saw red. This was the kid we'd sacrificed everything for, whose medical bills we were still paying, who we just bought a $700 laptop for, and she was calling us financially irresponsible? I stormed into her room that night and told her she was being selfish, ungrateful, and cruel to her sister. Brianna stood up from her desk and said something I'll never forget. She said, "You've been punishing me my whole life for being born at a bad time. That's not my fault. And I don't owe Amara anything just because she was born when things were better for you." I told her she had no idea what she was talking about, that we loved both our daughters equally. She laughed, actually laughed, and said, "You don't even realize you treat us completely differently." Then she asked me to leave her room. I told her she could keep the money, but she was grounded until she adjusted her attitude. The grounding didn't change anything. Brianna just stayed in her room more than usual, which wasn't that different from normal anyway. She'd come down for dinner, eat in silence, and go back upstairs. Amara kept asking what was wrong with Brianna, why everyone was so tense. I told her not to worry about it, that it was just teenage stuff. But I could tell Amara knew it was about her birthday. She started saying things like, "I don't really need a new phone," and "Maybe I can just get the battery replaced on this one." That broke my heart because she was trying to smooth things over, being the peacemaker like she always is. After a week of this cold war with Brianna, I made a decision. I went into her room while she was at work and found her money. She kept it in an envelope in her desk drawer, $320 in cash. I took $150 of it and left the rest. I left a note that said, "This is what family contribution looks like. You still have money for shoes. Amara gets her phone. Everyone wins." I genuinely thought this was a reasonable solution, that Brianna would be upset initially but would eventually see that I was teaching her an important lesson about generosity and family obligation. When Brianna came home and found the money missing, all hell broke loose. She came downstairs screaming, actually screaming, something she never does. "You went through my things and stole from me?" she yelled. I told her I didn't steal anything, that I took a family contribution she should have volunteered in the first place. She said, "That's literally theft. You went into my private space and took money I earned." Keisha tried to calm her down, explaining that we were trying to be fair to both daughters. Brianna turned on her and said, "You're just as bad as he is. You've always chosen Amara over me." Amara heard all of this from upstairs and came down crying. She said she didn't want the phone if it meant everyone fighting. She said she wished she'd never asked for anything. Brianna looked at her and said, "This isn't about you, Amara. This is about them using you as an excuse to control me." I told Brianna she was being dramatic and manipulative. She pulled out her phone and said, "I'm calling Grandma. My mother lives about 30 minutes away, and Brianna has always had a special relationship with her." I told Brianna not to drag my mother into this, but she was already dialing. Within an hour, my mother was at our house. She listened to Brianna's side, then my side. Then she looked at me with such disappointment. Marcus, you went into that girl's room and took money she earned from working? She asked. I explained the whole situation about Amara's contribution, about fairness, about teaching responsibility. My mother said, teaching responsibility doesn't mean stealing. That child worked for that money. She told me I needed to give the money back immediately and apologize. I refused, said I was the parent and I was making a decision for the good of the whole family. My mother took Brianna home with her that night. She said Brianna could stay with her until, you get your head straight, Marcus. Keisha was upset with me for letting Brianna leave, but I said maybe some space would be good for everyone. The next morning, I got a call from my brother, who'd somehow heard about everything. He said, man, what are you doing? You can't just take money from your kid. Even my brother was against me. I tried to explain, but he cut me off and said, you're wrong, Marcus. Make it right before you lose that girl for good. The intervention from my family pissed me off more than anything. They weren't the ones trying to raise 2 daughters in an expensive city on a limited budget. They weren't the ones making impossible decisions every month about what bills to pay and what to let slide. I felt like Brianna had manipulated everyone into thinking she was the victim when really she was just being selfish. Keisha started wavering, saying maybe we should give back the money and find another way. I said absolutely not, that we'd look weak and Brianna would learn she could defy us and win. Amara's birthday came, and we got her the phone using the money I'd taken from Brianna plus some we'd scraped together. Brianna didn't come to the small celebration we had. She stayed at my mother's house and didn't even call. Amara cried on her birthday, kept saying everything felt wrong, that she didn't even want the phone anymore. She asked if she could give it to Brianna to make peace. I told her absolutely not, that the phone was hers and she deserved it. But watching Amara cry on her birthday, knowing my older daughter wasn't there, I started to feel something shift inside me. Not quite regret yet, but something close to it. 3 days after the birthday, I got a letter in the mail. It was from a lawyer's office, a formal demand letter on behalf of Brianna. The letter stated that I had unlawfully taken property belonging to my minor daughter, that this constituted theft under Georgia law, and that I had 7 days to return the full amount plus compensatory damages of $50, or legal action would be pursued. I couldn't believe what I was reading. My own daughter was threatening to sue me. I called my mother's house and demanded to speak to Brianna. My mother said Brianna didn't want to talk to me and that I should take the legal letter seriously. I showed the letter to Keisha, and she completely broke down. She got a lawyer, Marcus. Our daughter got a lawyer because of what you did. I said the lawyer was probably just trying to scare us, that no judge would take this seriously. Keisha said, you took money that didn't belong to you. How is that not serious? We had the biggest fight of our marriage that night. She said I'd let my pride and my weird resentment of Brianna destroy our family. I said she was being manipulated, that Brianna had always been dramatic. Keisha said, maybe Brianna's been right about us all along. Against my better judgment, I consulted with a lawyer friend from church. I explained the situation, expecting him to tell me the demand letter was nonsense. Instead, he said, Marcus, legally speaking, you're in a bad position. Even though she's a minor, her earned wages are her property. You admitted you took the money without permission. That's conversion, possibly theft. He said if this went to small claims court, Brianna would almost certainly win. The judgment would be on public record and could affect my security clearance at work. He strongly advised I return the money immediately and settle this before it escalated. I felt backed into a corner. I'd already spent the $150 on Amara's phone, plus we'd used our buffer money for the rest of the phone and the birthday celebration. I didn't have the money to give back, not without returning the phone, and I couldn't do that to Amara. I tried one more time to reach out to Brianna through my mother. I asked if we could meet and talk this through without lawyers. My mother said Brianna would meet with me, but only if I came with either the cash or a concrete payment plan in writing. The level of formality my own daughter was demanding from me felt like a knife in my chest. I met Brianna at a coffee shop near my mother's house. She looked different, older somehow, more resolved. She had a notebook with her and a copy of the demand letter. I tried to start with an apology, saying I understood she was upset, but I'd been trying to do what was best for the family. She held up her hand to stop me. I'm not here for an apology. I'm here for my money. Either you give me $200, 150 you took plus 50 in damages, or I'm filing in small claims court next Monday. Her voice was calm, businesslike, completely devoid of emotion. I told her I didn't have the money right then, that I'd need time. She asked how much time. I said maybe a month. She said, 2 weeks, and I want it in writing. She slid a piece of paper across the table, a payment agreement she'd typed up herself. It stated that I, Marcus Thompson, agreed to pay Brianna Thompson the sum of $200 by a specific date, and that failure to pay would result in immediate legal action. At the bottom were lines for both our signatures and the date. I signed it because I didn't know what else to do. My daughter had turned a family disagreement into a legal contract. Over the next week, I borrowed money from 3 different people to get the $200 together. I had to tell my coworker why I needed a short-term loan, and his face when I explained was pure shock. "You took money from your teenager and now you're paying her back with interest?" he asked. Word spread at work. People looked at me differently. I went from being Marcus, the reliable guy in logistics, to Marcus, the guy who steals from his own kid. The shame was suffocating, but I told myself everyone else just didn't understand the full situation. I paid Brianna the money a day before the deadline. We met again at the same coffee shop. She counted it in front of me, all $200, then put it in her bag. "Are we done here?" I asked. She said, "Legally, yes. Otherwise, no, we're not done." I asked what she meant. She said, "You owe me more than money. You owe me an acknowledgement of how you've treated me my whole life." I said I'd always loved her and provided for her. She said, "Providing isn't the same as loving. You've resented me since the day I was born because your life got hard, and you've spent 17 years taking it out on me." I wanted to deny it, but sitting there across from my daughter with her calm, hurt eyes, I couldn't. Some part of me had blamed Brianna, not consciously exactly, but blamed the timing of her arrival for every hardship that followed. I'd looked at Amara as our second chance, our fresh start, the daughter who came with good luck instead of bad. I'd never said these things out loud, but Brianna had felt them anyway. "I don't know how to fix this," I finally said. She said, "I don't know if you can. I'm 17 now. I'm applying to colleges as far away from here as possible. After I leave, I don't know if I'm coming back." That conversation destroyed something in me. I went home and told Keisha everything Brianna had said. Keisha started crying, saying she'd been trying to tell me for months that I treated the girls differently, but I'd always gotten defensive. "I think we've lost her, Marcus," Keisha said. "I think she's going to leave and never forgive us." I wanted to argue, to say Brianna was being overdramatic, but I couldn't. The evidence was too clear. I'd literally stolen from my own daughter and threatened to fight her legally rather than admit I was wrong. Amara has been a wreck since all of this happened. She barely uses the phone we got her. She says it feels cursed, that every time she looks at it she thinks about Brianna. She asked if she could sell it and give Brianna the money. I told her no, that this wasn't her burden to carry. But the guilt is eating at her anyway. My sunny, easy daughter has become quiet and withdrawn, almost like Brianna used to be. It's like the family dysfunction is contagious. I did this. I took my anger and my financial stress and my complicated feelings about my daughters, and I turned it into a weapon that hurt everyone. Brianna did move back home after I paid her the money, but only because my mother said she needed to finish high school in her own district. She's in the house but barely speaks to me. She talks to Keisha sometimes, brief conversations about school or logistics. She's polite to Amara, but the closeness they used to have is gone. Our family dinners are silent, awkward affairs. I keep trying to think of things to say, ways to bridge the gap, but everything sounds hollow before it even leaves my mouth. Brianna is counting down the days until she can leave for college. I can see it in the way she crosses off days on her calendar. My mother won't speak to me beyond basic pleasantries. She said I reminded her of my father, who was controlling and proud and drove all his kids away before he died alone. That comparison hit me like a physical blow. My father died when I was 25, and I didn't go to his funeral because of how much pain he'd caused our family. I swore I'd never be like him. Yet here I am, watching my daughter prepare to cut me out of her life the same way I cut out my father. The generational curse I thought I'd broken is alive and well, just wearing a different face. The worst part is I still catch myself trying to justify what I did. I'll be driving to work and thinking, but I really was trying to be fair. Amara did contribute to Brianna's gift. It's not crazy to expect reciprocity. Then I remember Brianna's face in that coffee shop, the way she counted out the money I'd stolen from her like I was a stranger, a debtor, anyone but her father. I remember how she'd typed up a legal contract because she trusted a piece of paper more than she trusted my word. That's when the justifications crumble and I'm left with the truth. I damaged my daughter because my ego mattered more than her dignity. Keisha and I are in marriage counseling now. Our therapist asked me to describe each of my daughters. When I talked about Amara, I used words like bright, loving, easy, blessing. When I talked about Brianna, I used words like complicated, distant, challenging, difficult. The therapist asked, "Do you think Brianna became distant because she sensed your ambivalence about her?" I'd never thought about it that way. I'd always assumed Brianna was just born more reserved, more internal. But what if her emotional distance was a shield she built because she felt my emotional distance first? What if I created the very thing I resented about her? I've tried apologizing to Brianna several times since paying her back the money. Each time, she listens politely and says, "Okay, thank you." No forgiveness, no reconciliation, just acknowledgement that I spoke. The therapist says I can't expect forgiveness on my timeline, that Brianna has 17 years of hurt to process. She says the best thing I can do is consistently show up differently, respect Brianna's boundaries, and prove through actions over time that I've changed. But Brianna is leaving for college in 8 months. I don't have years to prove myself. I have months at best. Last week, I did something I probably shouldn't have done. I wrote Brianna a long letter, pages and pages, explaining everything. I told her about my own childhood, about my father's emotional abuse, about how scared I was when she was born and everything fell apart. I told her about the medical bills, the job loss, the eviction, the shame of not being able to provide. I explained that somewhere in my broken brain, I'd linked all that pain to her arrival, and even though I knew that was irrational, the association stuck. I told her I was sorry, truly sorry, for making her carry the weight of my failures. I told her I loved her and I was proud of her and I wished I'd said those things every single day of her life. I left the letter on her desk. 2 days later, it was still there, unopened. On the 3rd day, it was gone. She's never mentioned it. I don't know if she read it and hated it, read it and felt nothing, or threw it away without reading it at all. The not knowing is torture, but I also recognize I have no right to demand a response. This is what it feels like to be on the other side of emotional distance, to reach out and find nothing reaching back. This must be how Brianna has felt for years. The empathy is arriving far too late. Amara asked me last night why I liked her better than Brianna. She's 13 years old and she's figured out what I spent years denying. I told her I didn't like her better, that I loved them equally. She said, "You love us maybe, but you don't like Brianna the way you like me. I can tell." Then she said something that broke me. "I wish you'd taken money from me instead of her. I don't want to be the reason you guys aren't a family anymore." I held her while she cried and promised her this wasn't her fault. But my promises don't seem to mean much these days. I'm writing this now because I don't know what else to do with all this regret. I thought I was teaching my daughter a lesson about family responsibility. Instead, I taught her that her father would violate her privacy, steal her property, and fight her legally rather than admit wrongdoing. I thought I was being fair to both my daughters. Instead, I showed clear, documented favoritism that's now obvious even to the daughter who benefited from it. I thought I was holding my family together. Instead, I've watched it fracture in real time and I'm the one holding the hammer. If I could go back to that moment when Keisha first suggested asking Brianna for money, I'd say no. I'd find another way, take on extra hours, sell something of my own, go without something I wanted. I'd eat the unfairness of not being able to afford Amara's phone the same way I've eaten 1,000 other financial disappointments in my life. I'd protect Brianna's money the same way I'd protect her physically. because being her father means being her protector, not her creditor. But I can't go back. I can only go forward into a future where my daughter is counting down the days until she can leave me behind. The sneakers Brianna was saving for finally came back in stock last week. I saw her looking at them on her laptop. She has the money now, the money I gave back plus what she's earned since. She could buy them easily, but she hasn't. I wonder if they're ruined for her now. If every time she looks at them she remembers what I did. I wonder if I've contaminated something she wanted, turned a simple joy into a reminder of betrayal. I wonder how many other things I've contaminated over the years without realizing it. Probably more than I can count. People ask me if I've learned anything from this mess. I've learned that being right doesn't matter if you're destroying your relationships to prove it. I've learned that fairness between siblings isn't mathematical, isn't about making sure contributions match up exactly. I've learned that my children are watching how I treat them, learning from me what love looks like, and I've shown them a version of love that's conditional, transactional, and cruel. I've learned that you can lose your daughter while she's still living in your house, still sitting at your table, still breathing the same air. I've learned that some mistakes don't get fixed, they just get lived with. Last night, I stood outside Brianna's door for 10 minutes, trying to work up the courage to knock. I wanted to tell her I was sorry again, to ask if there was anything I could do to make this right. I wanted to tell her about colleges I'd been researching, ask if she needed help with applications, offer to visit campuses with her. I wanted to be her father in some way that mattered. But I couldn't make myself knock because I'm afraid of her polite, distant, "Okay, thank you." I'm afraid of the proof that I'm irrelevant to her now. So I walked away from her door the same way I've been walking away from hard truths my whole life. This is where we are now. A family of 4 people living in careful isolation, navigating around each other like strangers in a too small space. Amara drowning in guilt over a phone she didn't ask to cost so much. Keisha exhausted from trying to hold together something that might already be broken. Brianna counting down to freedom. And me, standing in the wreckage of my own making, finally understanding everything I've done wrong but having no idea how to do anything right. The worst part isn't what I've lost. It's knowing I threw it away myself. Over $300 and a pair of shoes and a pride I can't even justify anymore. If you're reading this trying to decide if you're in a similar situation, if you're thinking about taking money from your kid or demanding they sacrifice for a sibling or punishing them for setting a boundary, don't. Whatever you think you're teaching them about family, you're wrong. What you're actually teaching them is that they aren't safe, that their things aren't theirs, that your love comes with conditions they'll never be able to meet. You're teaching them to leave, and they will. They'll leave the first chance they get, and you'll be left exactly where I am. Writing confessions to strangers on the internet because the people who should hear your apologies have stopped listening. I don't know how this story ends. Maybe Brianna leaves for college and never comes back. Starts a new life where I'm just the guy who sends awkward birthday texts once a year. Maybe she finds it in herself to forgive me somewhere down the line, though I'm not sure I deserve it. Maybe Amara grows up okay despite all this. Or maybe she carries her own scars about being the favorite and what that cost her sister. Maybe Keisha and I fix our marriage, or maybe this breaks us too. All I know for sure is that I made the wrong choice, kept making it even when everyone told me to stop, and now I'm living with consequences I'll never be able to outrun. That's the real lesson here. Some mistakes don't get solved, they just get survived. Thank you for watching all the way through. There's another story to your left screen. You'll enjoy it more than this one.